Hey, Matt.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. All right, go ahead with your thought.
I mean, first thing I would say is, because I know this would get immediate pushback, is, I want to say this with humility, because I believe it'll probably rub people who disagree with me the wrong way. But I would use my own journey as a testimony to this. So my own spiritual walk, I started a religion, was raised in it, that was very, felt oppressive. Felt like there were a lot of rules, a lot of morality issues that I didn't agree with at the time. And that caused me to walk away from that faith. Didn't stop believing that there was something higher out there, that there could be a God. Probably self-agnostic, that leaned towards the desire that there is something else out there, but wasn't sure about it, And then I had encountered God myself on my knees. But even after that, I didn't just take things that people told me to believe. Some things, yes, I was more open to hearing it. I was open to hearing that there was a God because I had encountered him. So, of course, people talking about the reality of God, I was, ready to accept that. But I wasn't ready to accept all the morality that they necessarily taught that came with that. But as I experienced God for myself, my personal experience with God was one that led me to Jesus. I came to the knowledge that, and I believe this knowledge, I accept this knowledge is true, that Jesus was God, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't get away from the fact that if I followed Jesus and I worked with Jesus, that Jesus also said that, the one who builds his life on my teaching is like the one who builds his life on rock. And if the rain and the storms come, their life or their house, as he says it, will not fall down. So when he says that, he claims that there's a certain level, or not a certain level, there's a absolute level of authority that he has in this world. So that the one who follows him, if they want to be successful, they want to be blessed, however you want to call it, they have to submit their way of thinking, their way of living to what he says. And so that is the problem. The line of thinking that you mentioned before, that if someone tells you that something is wrong, then that's not a right thing and that's the wrong path. That is, unfortunately, however you want to put it, depends on the person listening to this, that flies in the face of what Jesus is saying. He's saying that my instruction, my way of living is superior. And if you want to be successful, whatever you want to call it, you want to be blessed spiritually, whatever, you want to receive the benefits of a good life, I guess you could call it, not just in this life, but in the next life, you have to submit to the things that he says. You see, so those things are parallel, or not parallel, those things are in opposition working against each other. One says, you can't tell me what's right or what's wrong. Someone else should be able to oppose my opinion of right or wrong. That is an opposition to what Jesus teaches, where he teaches that, like, ultimately you have to submit to things that I'm telling you, And we have free will, so we can choose to do that, we can choose not to do that, but I don't think that is illogical. People might not like it because they might not like exactly what Jesus teaches, but the idea that you have to submit to a higher authority, it governs everything that we do. Like, just because I don't like gravity, what person wouldn't want to fly, right? I'd like to fly around like Superman, but I can't. I have to, I shouldn't say I have to, I am forced to submit to the laws of gravity. I can't just choose to fly. In our society, we don't believe that morality shouldn't be legislated. We don't believe that morality shouldn't be governed because we have laws. And I guarantee every single person is glad at some point that there is some law that's being exercised over the whole population. We wouldn't want people to be able to just murder our families. We're glad that the government restrains the morality of people so that they won't choose to murder other people. So the principle I'm getting at is that morality ultimately is not above or is not subject to it can't be subject to whatever a person individually wants.
There's a higher standard. There's a standard.
Yeah. So just to ask yourself, okay, you have to. Sorry, I was drinking some water. You have to ask yourself if God's real, and we believe He is real. But if He's real, right? It seems like it's not illogical to think that He set up the universe to work under a certain set of principles, certain set of laws. We see that in nature, but I think that we can also see that in morality, right? So God has certain morals that He has also set up too that we should follow. The laws of nature, we're kind of forced into doing that, But the laws of morality are different because we have free will. We are subject to be able to choose whether we want to do things or not do things. Right?
Yes.
So this is the biggest. Maybe if humanity has a problem with God, it's that God has set moral principles in action or in order that He has asked us to follow. And what a Christian hopefully has done, somebody who believes in Jesus, is they've accepted these and they've said that I'm going to submit to these things. And it's not like, I don't think that it's an oppressive thing. I think people might feel like it's an oppressive thing, like if God's real and these things are true that are written in the Bible, and He's telling us we can't do certain things, I don't think that those are oppressive things. The same way that hopefully my children, when they get older, they might not like certain rules that I have now, but later, I'm hoping, I know I've done this, that they will appreciate that their parents did put restrictions on them because it was ultimately for what? Their well-being, right?
Yes. That's exactly why God has the standards that He has, is because ultimately, even though we don't understand it right now, this is for our well-being, just like your children.
I think as you learn to submit more to God in your heart, in your spirit, you can gain understanding about why God has chosen to put certain restrictions our culture, a big one is marriage, right? Like, God has said that He created man and woman, and He created marriage, and He created that a way that sexuality is expressed, and that's in marriage between a man and a woman. And like, you know, even just taking the whole people choosing to have sex with other people outside of marriage, you know, I know I personally, for me, I've experienced the blessing of that. You know, that.
But people don't understand, why would you receive a blessing?
Yeah, obviously before I was a Christian, you know, I went all over the place with that. And now that I'm a Christian, like, man, I'm so grateful that I have a wife, and that, like, she's committed to me and I'm committed to her. Like, I don't know how to over or understate that. You know, like, it's there's a blessing there. Like, I have a soulmate, a life mate, whatever you want to call it, like someone that, you know, like I can depend on, that's there for me. The intimacy, sexual intimacy we express, I feel like is so much better. And honestly, like, I love this person. I don't want her with other people. Like, it's just, I'm so grateful that she's committed only to me, and I think we would want that same standard. We would want that standard applied to us. I mean, I know in this world I guess some people are okay with that, but I think deep down, like, if you really love someone like that, you know, it would really hurt you to see them with another person, you know? And, so...
All right, good example. Okay, what's your point?
Yeah, my point is, like, so there's something right there that God created, and He says that this is the way I've blessed this relationship.
All right, Matt.
In marriage, you know?
Yeah, Bruce Wayne, that's a very good example, Matt. But I just have another question. Regarding morality, where would be a good place in the Bible to get a summary of moral standards? I think Galatians. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. Galatians. I was just reading Romans chapter 1 through 3. I think that is a good place to hear where God, or what God thinks
so,
about.
Romans chapter 1 through 3?
Yeah, specifically in Romans 1. Romans 1 deals with God's...
God's what? You were breaking up there. The phone went in and out, buddy. The phone went in and out.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. What?
Yeah, so Romans 1 deals with God's disapproval of sin and certain moral behaviors that we perform. And it's making it clear, like God disapproves of these things. That's the point. And that God has anger, wrath, stuff that people don't like to think about. God has anger towards our morality that we've chosen as a human race. Then he also, in Romans 2, I think it is, it's either the end of Romans 1 or Romans 2, he goes, Paul, the guy who's writing that, he doesn't just stop with the people that are committing these immoral actions, but then he turns towards the people that believe that they're religious, that they're righteous, and he condemns them too. He says, you know, who are you? Basically, he's saying to the irreligious person and to the religious person that we all have to be humble before God, because we've all committed sin against God. We've all done things, whether we're a religious person or not a religious person. You know, and then that's where he goes into the most important thing, which is because every single person has committed sins against God, people might not like thinking of it as they've sinned against God, but I think an easy way to maybe see that is if you've ever done anything that you yourself have felt guilty about, I think that's a good example of, like you can see within your own self, hopefully if you're honest, that you've done things that you wish you never did morally. You have done things morally.
So
that
are you,
wish
wait a minute,
you never
I
did.
got a question then. So basically you're saying we humans kind of have that moral code built into us. And I just lost connection with him. Give me a second. I'm going to pause this and be right back. All right, back.
Word.
Okay, continue.
Well,
remember-
you were asking me a question.
Shoot, what was I asking you? Basically, we have a certain standard that we kind of know because it's kind of grafted into us from our childhood. Some of these morals that come from God came from our parents, came from our grandparents, came from our friends.
Well, actually, the Bible in Romans, I think it's 1 or 2, says that we all have this knowledge within us. Even those who don't have the law, that's a whole other thing. But God gave the law in the Old Testament. It's like a standard of moral living. Even those who don't have the law have a law within themselves because they can tell they violated their own conscience, right, about things. So I personally think, yes, society, our upbringing, friends, that can affect our morality, but I don't think that is the sole place it comes from. I think that it comes from God. I think that the Bible says that, we have an internal guide that's in all of us, and actually the Bible makes it clear we've chosen to suppress that at times because for whatever reason we don't want to hear it, we don't like it, whatever it is, we've chosen to suppress the knowledge that God's given us about what's right and what's wrong, to choose things that we want to do instead. That's really the crux of Paul's argument there.
And when Paul's making that argument, why do we choose these things? My thinking is we choose these things over the things of God because of selfishness.
Yeah, I think the way the Bible would call that is sin. That's that word sin. The word sin is we've chosen to sin because we, unfortunately, human race is born with a sin nature. We naturally desire.
I got a thought. Didn't Cain kill Abel?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it was sin, but why did Cain kill Abel? What was his thinking? Selfish, right? Wasn't he selfish?
Yeah, it was. It was specifically jealousy. So, you could say our sin nature is what causes us to be selfish. I look at it like, I think it's evident that when you look at humanity, when you look at the news, when you look at all the things going on inside of us, that it's easy to see that there's something wrong with the human race. If you're willing to be open to that. I was just listening to somebody talk. He said, the crazy thing is about genocides, like, let's say Nazi Germany, we said...
You got to start over that thought. The recording stopped
Sure.
and everything. I had an Amber Alert come on my phone.
I got you. Let me know when you want me to start up again.
Well, go ahead. Start right now.
So, when you look at humanity, or when you're... I just listened to someone talk about genocide. And basically, the idea that they were expressing was they had read a book that, I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but this book had gone into the history of genocides. And the scary thing about genocides is that they were committed by your everyday people. Like, they were just committed by normal people. like Nazi Germany, right? That was a big genocide. We look at Hitler, we think, oh, Hitler was an evil dude, and for sure he was. But he needed the whole country to go along with him to do that. Like, one man did not have the power to do all that, you know? And you can't, like, yeah, sure, one man might be deluded enough and crazy enough to have these thoughts about killing people for no other reason than their religious orientation or their race or whatever. But, like, everyone in the country got on board with this so he could do that. I mean, these people who were helping him had families, they had children, they, you know, like, they were your neighbor, you know what I mean? Your everyday person. I mean, you had neighbors ratting out other neighbors and turning them into the Nazis so that they could go into concentration camps, you know?
Yeah.
So my point is, everyday people, unfortunately, have been shown to commit horrific acts of violence and hatred towards other people. And this, I think, is at the heart of what the Bible talks about when it says we have a sin problem. Humanity has a sin problem. If you think that you're above it, unfortunately, you're lying to yourself. You just are. Like, you can say I'm not as bad as this person, but you can't say that you're perfect. You know? And, like,
well, that brings up a whole nother argument about is sin equal to God, which I have answers for. You know, God Questions Ministries provides a very good article there. But besides,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But besides, I would say a lot of times people are relative in what they think is evil and what they don't think is evil. You know, be it as it may. Like, I mean, you could look at it. Yeah, I mean, I think we're capable of really evil things, and we're capable of things.
We're capable of what? You were breaking up. What?
We're capable of supporting very evil things, too.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just, and I don't want to get into a whole rabbit trail with that, but, I could talk more about that at some point. Like, I think that we're capable of supporting very evil things. I mean, in our country, you go back 100 years and people were supporting, racism and all that. Slavery ended in 1860, but, even as far as, I think you had, like, Jim Crow laws in the 50s and 60s, it had, and even now there's still plenty of racism that goes on. But, like, my point is that everyday normal people are capable of really horrific acts. I mean, there was a point 200 years ago when slavery was existing where, like, people owned slaves. And it was okay to beat or whatever, do terrible things to your slaves. And they were performed by normal people, everyday people. Normal people were doing these things. You can try to say that it's one group of people, but you can go anywhere in the world to any country, and at some point in the history of that country, they were doing very horrific things to the people that lived in that country. I'm pretty sure that you could go through history and do that. I don't think any ethnic group or people group has been excluded from that, So, like, my point is the Bible says we have a sin problem. And then to tie it back into Romans 3, or Romans, the book of Romans is written to show us, like, what the gospel is. The gospel is the solution to our sin problem. And the gospel is the solution to, at the heart of the gospel, you really can't get around that. The biggest reason Jesus came was to take care of our sin before God. And he took care of that. So everyone who believes in him is now forgiven and justified before God. Justified means that God no longer counts their sin against them, but he considers them righteous before him. And it's on the basis of faith. Faith and trust in Jesus Christ. And then because of that, when you believe and you trust in Jesus, the Bible talks about it gives you a new nature. I'm not saying every Christian's walked this out perfectly. They have not. Christians sin too, but a true someone who's really put our faith in Jesus. The Bible says that God's Spirit takes up residence in that person, and through His Spirit working in that person, He helps them overcome their sin nature. And that's where you see, like what you were talking about in Galatians, I think here, the fruits of God's Spirit. With God's Spirit, it's really in a person's life. I shouldn't say it; it's a he. He's a he. The Holy Spirit is a he. If He's really working in a person's life, you will see the fruit of the Spirit in that person. They'll start looking more like Jesus. They'll start love. They'll have fruit of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, all that stuff that starts working into a person's life and starts changing them and transforming them. So going back to my testimony that I was talking about at the beginning of this, as I started following Jesus, I started feeling like Jesus started helping me to realize more and more that I can't choose to live under my own authority. I have to submit more and more of my way of thinking, what I think is right and wrong, what I choose to believe. I have to submit more and more of that to be in line with the way He thinks,
Yeah.
And that ties in with ultimately your question of, is it right to think the person you had noticed on the stream saying that it's not right for another person to tell someone what's right or what's wrong? Yeah, like on a certain level, I agree with that, but it is right for God to tell us what's right and what's wrong. So that's the big difference. I mean, anybody can say anything's right and wrong, and anybody can try to force their morality on somebody else, but I think the only person that has a right to do that is God. God has the right to say what is right and what is wrong and tell people that you need to submit to this, and this is the right way to do things. So, yes, you could say it's not okay for people to tell other people what's right and what's wrong. I don't think it's wrong to say that you can tell people that what God says is the right way to do something. And in fact, Christians, if they're living with humility, hopefully they're communicating that to people. Like, this standard of morality isn't coming from me. It's coming from God. That would be my answer.
I'm listening, Matt.
That's all I have to say about that. I don't know if you have any other questions for me about that. But.
No, I think we hit the nail on the coffin with this. And, I mean, for sum ups, we're done with, I think, this segment of this audio clip. We're sorry that we haven't got to the point where we're actually doing this on video like we want to. That's the plan down the road, is to, do this in a more formal manner. But it's a lot easier for us and for Bruce Wayne's, Matt's timing to be able to just do it on a phone call. So we're just trying to, but we appreciate everyone listening in. If you get this far in the video, we really appreciate you listening to us. And if you have any questions, most of you probably know me because our ministry is so young. But, the email address, is on the YouTube page. You can send an email there. I probably should change that email eventually because I don't need the spam on my box someday, but, I just ask for prayers that Matt and I's ministry, it grows even further, and we're trying to do what we can to make a difference with the people that we are surrounded with at first, and then also the people that come on YouTube and hear our content. We're trying to bring the light of Jesus into a dark world, and that ultimately will bring peace to this world that surpasses any understanding that we have ever known. Like, we cannot understand this peace that God can bring by doing things His way, not our own way.
Yeah, I think that's our gospel is.
What?
That's at the heart of the gospel of Jesus is. It's not just a believing in Jesus, like, oh, I believe He's real, I believe He rose from the dead. Those things are important, but it's a submission to Jesus that we would say is the most important thing a person can have. A submission to His authority in your life. You know, the early confession of the church was Jesus is Lord, right? And that comes with the idea if He's Lord, then He's the rightful submit to, you know?
You're really breaking up, Matt, but that's okay.
Okay.
It's all right. No, I got in your line of thought. If you want to repeat it, you could, for the audience.
Am I right or no?
Huh?
No. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying that, like, at the heart of the gospel, that Jesus is real, that He rose from the dead, like, those things are important. But at the heart of the gospel is this idea that, like, the early church confession was that Jesus is Lord, right? And if He's Lord, that means that He's the rightful authority that we should be submitting our lives to. You know, Paul says He died for all so that those who believe in Him might not live for themselves any longer, but for Him who died for them. You know? So that's He died for us for the sake that we might believe in Him and then live for Him, live under His submission, live under His authority. You know, so that's where I would stand with that. I think that ties into what you were saying. But
all right. Well, I'm gonna end the recording, and I got one more question for you. Not on the recording, but just you guys. Thank you for listening in, and you guys have a good day.